Mystery in Cleveland dating back to 2004. The murders of 61 women, all of them unsolved.
Tonight, a Channel 3 News investigation has found at least some of those cases could be connected. And as Andrew Horansky learned, perhaps even the work of a serial killer.
In recent years, Cleveland has gained international attention over the gruesome deaths of women.
On the eve of Halloween, Cleveland police have discovered a true house of horrors.
Infamous over people like Anthony Soule, who killed 11, burying them near his home on Imperial Avenue. Michael Madison, a sex offender who disposed of victims in trash bags. And Christopher Whitaker, who tortured Aliana DeFries, a 14-year-old on her way to school.
We just got this feeling that something wasn't right.
Then there are the killers we don't know because they haven't been caught.
Still had so much living left.
A lot.
Including the one who took Merlin Malone's mom.
I no longer want to sit back and continue to be quiet. I really need some answers.
It was 5 years ago when Christine Malone, a 45-year-old mother of 8, was found in this field along Bessemer Avenue, strangled to death. The last time Merlin saw her alive, she was leaving home for a walk down East 93rd, where he believes she met the man who took her life.
You broke up a family. Why would you, do that? What was the purpose? What was the reason?
Questions which have haunted him for years, along with the belief that his mother's killer had other victims too. 20-year-old Jasmine Trotter was strangled to death and found beneath a porch on 93rd just days before. And though police did not announce a connection, families did.
You gotta try to stop it. It's the human thing to do.
Do you have hope that one day your mother's killer will be caught?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Well, tonight they may finally have something else. Proof.
The computer is coming back and saying this is almost certainly not the result of chance.
Our investigation took us just outside Washington, D.C. to Tom Hargrove, who considers himself a homicide archivist. He's created the country's most complete database of murders and a program that can weed out the serial killers. We spent weeks working with the plain dealer, pulling the data, and shared it with Tom.
Pretty confident that Cleveland has a serial killer issue.
Who concluded we do not have just a serial killer, but up to 3, who could have committed up to 27 murders. He also noted 15 of the victims ranged from 40 to 70, which is rare.
But the pattern of death and the age together suggests somebody is targeting not younger women, but middle-aged to older women, and doing so not with a firearm.
Women like Christine Malone.
Study that's been done.
Eric Witzig is a retired homicide detective who worked for the FBI and says it's no secret that fewer murders are now being solved.
In fact, it is now at its lowest point since data was collected. Resources for clearing homicides need to be increased.
Because tonight, Malone's killer may not be the only one still on the hunt.
He's a walking, talking, breathing testament that there are no sanctions to homicide.
Which happened in the Soule case, as we know. Now, we can tell you the killings have not stopped, that a case in Euclid just last year suggests they may have even spread. Our investigation continues tomorrow night, where we will pinpoint 2 areas of town where the algorithm found the killers appear to be gravitating most, and we are uncovering more clues as to why that may be. I'm Andrew Horansky, Channel 3 News.
Could Cleveland have a serial killer problem? Well, tonight a leading expert says yes, pointing to as many as 3 killers in 2 distinct locations. How could he possibly know? Andrew Horansky recently traveled to his home in Northern Virginia to find out.
61 unsolved murders involving women since 2004. Victims who were stabbed, strangled, struck, or shot at close range.
On the eve of Halloween, Cleveland police have discovered a true house of horrors.
And as many as 27 of those cases could be connected. Our investigation took us from Cleveland to Washington, D.C., but first we needed the data, working with the plain dealer to mine more than 10 years of records from the medical examiner's office, where deaths were ruled homicides, separating those that were suspicious, figuring out which were unsolved, and then taking them to a suburb of the nation's capital, where we found killers hiding in the numbers.
When you have so many more intimate deaths, and they're all unsolved, that, to us, suggests a series.
Tom Hargrove launched the not-for-profit Murder Accountability Project, which has compiled the most complete database of murders in the country and developed a computer formula that can find patterns in those killings. We asked him to run Cleveland's, and he quickly noticed
that there is a pattern of older women being killed by non-firearms methods, a more intimate kind of killing.
And that wasn't all. Hargrove also identified 2 clusters of murders on the city's east side. The first along Euclid Avenue, the second on East 93rd. While a number of the victims were over 40, as old as 70, and others had a record of prostitution. His conclusion, that whoever was responsible likely had a car and was organized.
Pretty confident that Cleveland has a serial killer issue.
And he concluded something else, that Cleveland could have as many as 3 active serial killers. Along many of these streets, homes are abandoned. And while men like Anthony Sowell were caught and convicted, others have gotten away with murder using these as their hunting grounds.
It really is common sense. If you leave killers walking the streets, oddly, the killing goes on. If you don't solve your murders, you should expect more of them.
Hargrove has worked with the Cleveland Police Department and believes they're doing a good job, but suspects they're not putting enough officers on homicides, and that can be dangerous.
It's hard to win a war if you don't have enough troops on the ground, and I'm afraid that's a growing problem throughout the nation.
Where the numbers show that murders are not only up, they're being solved with even less frequency. In 2016, only 59% of homicides resulted in arrests, according to the FBI.
That's the lowest clearance rate ever recorded in the United States. It's the lowest we've ever heard of in any Western nation. It's a national tragedy.
And a local one for so many families with so many questions.
And so today we took some of our questions to Cleveland police, asking if investigators are still looking at these crimes. If manpower is an issue in their homicide unit, why do they think some of those solve rates are down? We asked for an interview with the chief. We were promised a response. And Russ, we will let you know what that is.
Let me ask you this, Andrew. Does the department have any agencies, any offices that deal specifically with serial killers?
Well, they do not. We know that they have a homicide task force. That is something that they launched last year. But at this point, a group that deals specifically with serial killings, that doesn't exist.
Fascinating, very disturbing series of reports, Andrew.
More to come, I'm sure.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.